It is another Winky Wednesday. Our guest, Nicholas Winkler, joining momentarily to talk 49ers offseason schedule. An interesting story I just heard about the Steve Mariucci era, and Steve Young with some comments on what's going on with the 49ers and Debo and Trey Lance and Jimmy G. We'll get into all of it right now.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker with you at BD Peacock at Eric_Crocker. Thanks for making Locked On 49ers your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And now it's time to bring on today's guest,
Nicholas Winkler. Come on down.
Wow. Can't believe it.
Wink. What's happening, my man? Are you pumped now? You've seen some schedule. You see what the 49ers are going to be getting into this year.
Yeah, you got to love it, right? I mean, another road game to start the season, right? You just kind of pencil it in every year. Niners are going to start on the road, no problem. No, I like it, man. There's a lot of real cool marquee matchups, a lot of primetime games too, which you love as a 49er fan. So, yeah, of course I'm pumped.
I'll say this about the schedule. I would much rather have the 49ers schedule to start the season than what I saw from the Jets. And I asked a question on the Peacock and Williamson show. Make sure y'all check that out on the Locked On Network, coming at you 5 days a week. But the Jets, I mean, are they going to win 2 games to start? I mean, it was brutal.
I don't know it. What are the Jets? What does it look like? Yeah,
it's terrible. It's pretty bad. Yeah. And thanks for the plug there, Croc. It's I don't have it up in front of me. I can get it real quick. It's not easy, man. It's because they're playing the.
They play the AFC North out the jump. So hopefully for them, one, you do have Mitchell Trubisky starting at quarterback for the Steelers. So you got to hope that. But we all know the Steelers, they're well coached. Like, they're going to be good. Right? They're going to be competitive regardless. They won 8 games with Mason Rudolph and goddamn Duck Hodges, right? And then
Najee Harris still suiting up. So, yeah.
Yeah, they're going to be good regardless. At least competitive to where, like, Jets, can you beat them? And then they have the Browns, which, you know, I'm assuming Deshaun Watson won't play, so you'll have to
probably
play against,
not
Brissett. So, like, that helps them. But outside of that, it's brutal. And I don't think it gets any better the second half of the season either.
So, yeah, the 49ers could definitely have it worse. Here's the first 9 games before the bye for the New York Jets. It goes Baltimore at Cleveland, Cincinnati at Pittsburgh, Miami, Green Bay, Denver, New England, Buffalo.
I mean, maybe the Cleveland game, right? You just hope that that's the only game they could actually win out of that.
You hope that's Jacoby Brissett and not an angry and healthy Baker Mayfield that somehow hung on. But I think we're going to get some clarification with Deshaun Watson sometime soon. That is the word on the streets. And here are the 49ers' first 8 games before their bye. At Chicago, at home against Seattle, at Denver, Los Angeles, Carolina, Atlanta, Kansas City, and the Rams again. So not super easy, but man, so much better. And
you feel more comfortable. Now, obviously, you got to know, you know, we don't know what Trey Lance is, right? That's the big question mark. You know, is Trey Lance going to be solid? If he's solid, then you'll for sure at least win half of those games at the very least, right? So that's the big thing for the 49ers. And you see some familiar faces. You know, you talk about the Seahawks. Well, Trey Lance played against the Seahawks. I mean, whether it's just a half, but he watched them a lot on film. So he kind of knows a little bit more of how they want to attack them, what the game plan to be. Talk about him playing against seeing the Rams. He's seen them. The 49ers are very familiar with the Rams. So it's a little better of a situation. Although, again, huge question mark with Trey Lance. You just don't know where it's at. But I feel more comfortable with that. Especially you talk about Carolina, Atlanta, Chicago. It's like you feel much more comfortable with the 49ers.
Yeah, and I kind of like how it's laid out, too, because if Trey Lance is the starter, it gives the 49ers a chance to kind of change the culture, at least to the NFC West, because you can come out early. You know, you're at Chicago. You're not too worried about that. But then you have that home game against Seattle. And we know how tough it's been for the 49ers to take on the Seahawks, especially at Levi Stadium. So, like, that would be really good time, you know, for Trey Lance to step up and be like, look, this is my team. I'm going to take over this division now. Let's go. And then week 3, you go and you play Russell Wilson in his new home. So just kind of be a good way to either, come out strong and be like, look, we're real, we're legit. I'm the quarterback of this team. Let's go. This is a new era. Or if things don't go your way, then it's kind of like, oh man, not again. Not Russell Wilson and those Seahawks again. So
what you got to hope for with the 49ers and Trey Lance, stuff like that. Because one thing about the 49ers, even with Jimmy Garoppolo, the offense has started very slow, right? I mean, you look at every time that Jimmy Garoppolo started the season, whether it was the 2018 season. Remember, that first game against the Minnesota Vikings, Jimmy threw 3 picks. They lost on the road to Minnesota. You look at, and then they had the loss to, or the near loss to the Lions that year, started very slow. Remember, Jimmy threw that pick, but they called it back for holding. And then they went and lost in Kansas City. Like, that was a slow start. Then you come follow the next year. Now they won all those games starting off the season. I think they started like 8-0. But if you remember that offense, it wasn't clicking and hitting on all cylinders. So I think for the 49ers, even with Jimmy Garoppolo at quarterback, Trey Lance at quarterback, can you get a little bit more going offensively early on, maybe shake some things up and get in a groove? Because that it's been a team that has really started slow offensively and kind of been saved a little bit by the defense.
That's a good point. In 5 seasons, Kyle Shanahan's teams, especially the offense, has started slow in 4 of them. They had a really hot start in 2019, but this is set up.
But the offense started slow. Like, I mean, the Tampa game, remember, it took 2 pick sixes, one by Witherspoon, one by Sherman, to win that game.
In 2019?
And in 2019, that was the first game of the season against Tampa. Jameis Winston was like doing all kind of weird stuff.
Now Jameis Winston.
That was classic Winston, just chucking it, duck and chuck.
Yeah, and then they had the weird game against Pittsburgh early, like in the first couple games in that season, where the offense turned the ball over 5 times. Remember that? But Jimmy threw that game-winning touchdown pass to Pettis, and it was kind of the defense that saved them because they, I think it was like Armstead or Buckner who forced a fumble, and then the 49ers recovered it, and that's how they scored the game-winning touchdown. Like that. Now they were clicking against Cleveland, but they had that big run by Breda right away, and it kind of helped ease them into that game. But that season offensively, it was like the run game, Carolina game. It was like, remember, they ran for like 300 yards or whatever it was and put up 51 points. But Jimmy threw a pick. It wasn't. You look at it, it wasn't pretty from him. So they've had these slow starts offensively, but then they heat up. And they've done that consistently, whether it was last year, right? Team that started 3-5. And then the offense, Jimmy Garoppolo starts heating up a little bit. So hopefully just don't get off in a slow start with Trey Lance at quarterback.
Yep. Start faster, and you hope Trey Lance is ready to go. And I think they should be able to scheme stuff up, even if he has a little bit of a slower start. But man, it's especially those road games. It's just set up really well at Chicago. They should be a bad team. At Denver is really the only tough one in the first 8 games as far as road games. The first 5 road games, but the first 8 total. And the only back-to-back is, maybe the worst team on the schedule, even worse than Chicago, is maybe Atlanta. So at Carolina, at Atlanta is not bad. Who knows? Maybe Jimmy Garoppolo will be quarterbacking those Carolina Panthers at that point. But, and Los Angeles there's 2 Los Angeles and Kansas City there. There's at Denver, which could be tough in the altitude. I think when I went through this, that was the first loss I gave them, was at Denver. But, the 49ers played Los Angeles awesome. They dominated Los Angeles in their own house last year, right? And then almost beat them again.
I wouldn't say dominated, but yeah, they won.
I say dominated.
Levi's South.
Yeah, Levi's South, and physically dominated. Like, they went to their house and were like, we're going to beat you up. And even if it was a close fight, they still went to their house and beat them up. That's what I'm talking about. Domination is like, and that the meeting at Levi's, they definitely, just physically the Los Angeles Rams. So I saw a comment. I think it was a comment on YouTube saying that the new boogeyman isn't the Seattle Seahawks because of Russell Wilson, it's Los Angeles. And I just don't feel like it's that way. The Niners were a play away from sweeping them 3 games, including the NFC Championship game, and on the road in 2 of them.
Right. How can you be the boogeyman and you're getting your ass kicked? Like, okay, you got them, and that was the one that matters most. But that doesn't make you the boogeyman. Like, Russell Wilson tormented the 49ers for a decade.
Yep.
Like, they could not. I mean, it was, I think Nick Mullins randomly beat them. and then like early on, like Alex Smith, you know, like, but they were kicking the Niners' ass. Like that's the boogeyman. Like the Rams, they are a good football team. They are, but they don't scare me.
If you're the boogeyman, you don't give up a 17-point lead at home, you know, which they did in the final week of the season last year to the 49ers. Like, I'm not that I'm not afraid of the Rams, because again, you said it, they're a good football team, but
they are a good football team. They're well coached. They have premier players.
Super Bowl champs.
They lost a lot of players. I feel like that's kind of people aren't really thinking about that. They lost a lot. I know they signed Bobby Wagner, Allen Robinson, but they've lost a ton of guys and did not replace those guys. So a lot of people talk about all the money and, oh man, unlimited cap and all those type of things. No, the cap, they've made a lot of sacrifices for some of the players that they have on the roster, because I don't think that if you just look at their roster, it's the most premier offense. Now, when you have a quarterback like Matthew Stafford, then you can lose some of those other players around. And I think maybe that's what the balance is and what most teams kind of hope happen.
Yeah, they had some losses and they had some gains, but they definitely didn't get better, the Los Angeles Rams. And there's a better chance that they got worse.
But they don't, but they again, we're talking about a team, they have not had a losing season under McVay. So
and you could argue that
they're well coached.
You could argue that Stafford should be better in year 2 with McVay than he was in year 1 too.
I hope not.
Yeah.
And you know,
his numbers were damn good. His numbers, people talk about it, you know, he had some weird moments. His numbers, Stafford's numbers were like pretty.
But they're always good. I mean, you look at the history of Matt Stafford at quarterback. Like
that's always been his thing.
Good quarterback. Yeah.
And I swear, if Tart catches that interception in the NFC Championship game, there would be such a different conversation about Matthew Stafford. It would be night and day. He
can't win it. Yeah.
He's that guy can't win, chokes, throws too many picks, YOLO balls, and all this stuff. Instead, it's like, oh, now he's a Hall of Famer because he got the ring. One play.
Because somebody dropped a ball. That's crazy. You're right, though. There's no, it's hard to argue that.
We've got to move along here. Maybe we'll talk a little bit more about the schedule, the second half of the schedule here, and get Wink's thoughts on and Croc's thoughts, because I went solo when we were talking about the schedule last week. So maybe we'll get some predictions here, some early predictions looking at the 49ers schedule here in 2022. But I want to let the folks out there know about Built Bar. We're talking birthday cake puffs at built.com. 150 calories and 16 grams of protein. You are not going to find something that tastes like birthday cake with frosting and sprinkles. That is only 150 calories, but that's what you can find at built.com. They somehow make them taste good first, make them good for you second, and they are the treat that you will reach for because it tastes delicious and you don't feel like you're missing out. But compare it to a candy bar. 150 calories in the birthday cake. A lot of Built Bars are only 130 calories with 17 grams of protein and only 4 or 5 grams of sugar. Compare that to a candy bar. We're talking 350 calories, 30 grams of sugar. I mean, that will single-handedly wreck your diet. So make sure you're stocked with something that is good for you that still feels like a treat, and that is Built Bars. Most Built Bars covered in 100% real chocolate too, which means that you can eat healthy and actually enjoy it, and made with collagen protein, which your body absorbs more efficiently and provides tons of health benefits. So go to built.com and get birthday cake puffs now, or tons of other flavors. You can get a mixed box of Built Bars at built.com and use promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your order. That is promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. Thanks again, everybody, for making Locked On 49ers your first listen every day. For your second listen, check out Locked On NFL. The schedule might be a little bit dark here, but the NFL never stops. There's no offseason for real fans. There's no offseason here on the Locked On Podcast Network. You got Ross Jackson and Chris Carter, Tony Wiggins and the gang doing the Locked On NFL show, repping all 32 teams in the league, as are Matt Williamson and myself on the Peacock and Williamson NFL show. And you can find the YouTube version of that now on the Locked On NFL channel as well. And of course, Croc doing Locked On NFL Draft Daily right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. We got to get Wink his own podcast on the network. The Wink in the
Is there a Pearl Jam one on there? Can we do Pearl Jam? Locked On Pearl Jam?
Locked On Jam. That would be a good one, yeah. Trying to find here we go. There's the button. I couldn't find it.
There it is. I filled in appropriately.
It's the gift that keeps on giving.
Before we get off the first half of that schedule, I don't know about you guys, but I'm really looking forward to that home game against the Chiefs too. I feel like that's one of those games where, Kansas City's probably going to come in and be favored, but I feel like that's going to be a good measuring stick, because you're 7-8 weeks into the season, and it's just like, all right, here we go. This is a legit team. They don't have Tyreek Hill anymore. It'll be. I love those kind of games. I love seeing big guys come into our house. Yeah,
a little bit of a transition year. You want to beat the team that beat you in the Super Bowl, right?
Gotta beat them.
You got more firepower.
Still hold that.
It's the reason you drafted someone like Trey Lance, to have more firepower to keep up with other quarterbacks like that in the NFL. You got some in your division. You got a ton in the West that the 49ers are going to be playing the AFC West. So, and the 49ers could potentially, even if they're not on all cylinders early in the season, they could have a pretty good record there. And you'd be talking about a team that's trying to fight for first place or something like that. And then week 7 and 8, after that trip with Carolina and Atlanta, if you are above 500 at that point, feeling good about yourself, I think I had the 49ers at 6-1 or 5-1 after those 6 weeks, right? Then you got Kansas City, then you go to LA. Those are 2 really big games before the bye week.
Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun to see how it shapes out.
I don't know if this was fake, but I saw something about Nick Wright. Did you see what he had the 49ers record?
I don't listen. That's like the epitome of programming that I am not at all interested in. That's why I do this job, because I want to give people an alternative to that. So,
well, you do, because he has the 49ers going 14-3. And listen, I love my 49ers, right? Love talking about the 49ers.
Right.
I would love for them to go 14-3. But again, without seeing Trey Lance play, and he has very limited snaps, it's hard for me to say, this is a 14-3 team. Now, he could surprise us, hit the ground running. We know the coaching staff is terrific. We know the defense, they're typically solid. I love what DeMeco Ryans is doing. And who knows? They could go 14-3. But that wouldn't be something that I predict, right? Like I predict more like, 10-6 or, along those, 10-7, along those lines. I would predict more of that than I would 14-3. And let them surprise me. And I would love to see that.
It can go in a lot of ways, because there's some favorable things about the schedule, especially the home and away stuff. The only back-to-back is, the second half of the back-to-backs at the Atlanta Falcons, one of the weaker opponents on the schedule. You start off on the road, but it's against the other weakest opponent on the schedule roster-wise in Chicago. But maybe just the coaching staff alone there in Chicago will make them a lot better than what they look like under Matt Nagy, even though they're somewhat undermanned. But there's still a lot of good teams on the schedule. We talked about, LA 3 times, twice against the Rams. You've got, after the bye, the Chargers coming in that look like they're going to be a juggernaut potentially, even though they weren't a playoff team last year. They were already pretty good, and their roster got a lot better this offseason. You got the Cardinals still twice at the end of the season in the second half. You got Tampa Bay coming in week 14, farewell tour for Tom Brady. He's probably going to want to come to Levi's Stadium and beat the 49ers, right? Beat his childhood team one last time. That will probably be huge. At Las Vegas on New Year's Day, that is just going to be madness in Las Vegas for me.
You just hope they can stay out of trouble, right? Because New Year's Eve the night before in Vegas.
You hope so. And that's going to be it's going to be preached so hard for teams that come from outside. I feel like the Raiders have bigger opportunity to be in more trouble than the 49ers because it's just home to them, but then it'll be like a little extra, right? And we've already seen a lot of Raiders already get in trouble in the short time they've been in Las Vegas. But those last 5 games, you've got Tampa coming to town, at Seattle. Washington should be a win, but they're not going to be a pushover. They've got a pretty good defense, and their quarterback beat the 49ers last year. Then you got at Las Vegas New Year's Day. Then you finish with the Arizona Cardinals. And so there's going to be a lot decided at the end of the season. And I had the Niners going 10 or 11 wins when I first looked at the schedule, and I do like the favorable home and away stuff, but there's a lot of good teams too, and this could go south pretty easily as well. So before we move on from the schedule, any last predictions here from you guys on the schedule when you look at it? I think you said 10 wins, 10.5 wins is what you put it at. I think Vegas has the Niners at 10. I think that's a good number.
The over-under is set at 10. And actually, if you look at kind of the rookie quarterbacks, I saw this stat on ESPN. Out of all the second-year guys, I call them rookie quarterbacks, they're no longer rookies, but out of all the second-year quarterbacks, the 49ers have the best over-under win total, which is at 10. I think next up was the
Patriots, right?
Mac Jones at 8.
Yeah.
Was along
really? Only 8.
Their roster's so bad, man.
He doesn't like their roster. I think they're going to play well.
I don't know what the Patriots are doing. They don't even have an offensive coordinator.
Yes, they do. It's
No,
Bill
they
Belichick.
Ah,
They said he coaches everything. I mean,
If he's the offensive coordinator,
that.
who's the defensive coordinator?
Bill Belichick.
his son or something.
His
Not his son, the other Belichick.
His son looks like a
Mr. Mullet
meth head on the sideline. Like I don't trust that at all. Like Bill
Man, that's
Belichick's
crazy.
an
That's
amazing coach, but he's going to coach the offense.
You're not
and
wrong.
defense now. The only other guys vying for offensive coordinator were special teams coordinators and defensive coordinators in the past. So there's the play.
And
I mean,
the special teams coordinator was Joe Judge. Like Joe Judge, he's never called plays. He's going to be your offensive coordinator.
Matt just called plays on defense. He's never called plays on offense. He's going to be the guy.
But listen, but here I know, and Patricia, that's really wild. But here, listen, the Patriots, you kind of have to throw all logic out when it comes to them, because again, I was on FaceTime with a guy, McCourty, and I was at my buddy's house, Lavelle's house, and he had him on FaceTime. So I asked him questions, and he was telling me about like what they like, and they don't want the Eric Crocker as a coach. They want the guy that doesn't have really much of a background for the most part. Now, I'm not saying they haven't had some of their guys or whatever, but they want to be able to mold you into the type of coach that they want you to be. Mm-hmm. So although, Joe Judge has probably never coached offense in his life, he probably has been coached up and taught to understand it and be able to do it, just because they do things just a little bit unorthodox.
Well, Bill Belichick always wants to win the field position game and stresses special teams. And so if their offensive coordinator is a defensive coordinator and a special teams guy, then they're going to play the field position game and they're going to win a bunch of games by 2 points, right? They're going to win a bunch of games by field goals. And so that's they're not trying to blow people out. They're trying to barely win football games. And so they'll probably be pretty good at it, but I don't think their roster is good enough to hang. And I think they probably got the worst roster in their division.
He's been coaching the Patriots for 22 years now or something like that. I'm pretty sure in his headset, he's always listened to the calls. He's always understood offense and things like that. Like, so I don't think, and it just sounds crazy, but I don't think it'd be as tough of a transition for him to call plays. I just don't. I think it'd actually be kind of a seamless.
I think they would be better off if he was the offensive coordinator and let the rest of those guys run the defense that kind of runs itself. But I just think time in the day, there's not enough time to be an full offensive coordinator and a full defensive coordinator. I just don't think you can do it in the NFL.
He won't be. I think it'd be his the other Belichick.
His son. Yeah.
I don't trust any of the other Belichicks. Right? I trust Bill.
They haven't earned it yet.
You don't trust the meth head? I don't think
he's like grinding his teeth, his mullet. It's like if I saw that guy in any other walk of life and I didn't know he was Bill Belichick's son on a sideline, I would be like holding my kid's hand and going to the other side of the street. I wouldn't want to walk next.
No, don't give him $1. Don't do it.
Why are you staring at me hunched over and licking your lips, dude?
And doing the little
I mean,
there's a little weird.
There's cocaine. There has to be. Okay. We've got to move on. I want to ask you guys about something specific I saw from the Rich Eisen show featuring Steve Young, and he did talk a little 49ers past and present. I'm going to get to that after I let the folks out there know about Bet Online. Bet on the 49ers, 10 games, over or under. I would take the under maybe if it was 10.5 or 11, but if it's 10, I think the 49ers can win 10 games. But that's with faith in young Trey Lance. More on that momentarily. Our partners at Bet Online continue to be the #1 source for all your betting needs and sports information. More NFL odds, brand new fresh odds at Bet Online, like Super Bowl 57 in February 12th of 2023. Will it be an AFC team or an NFC team? You can actually get a little bump if you pick the NFC team over the AFC team right now. And you can already pick an over-under on Super Bowl 57. How's that? 49.5 points. It's pretty amazing that that's already up there. What division will win the Super Bowl? Will it be the AFC West? Will it be the NFC West? They actually have the AFC East ahead of the NFC West, which I do not agree with. But this is the order of the divisions at Bet Online for odds to win the Super Bowl. AFC West, then actually AFC East and NFC West are tied. Then it's the AFC North, then NFC North, then NFC South, then NFC East, then the AFC South. last. So you can bet on tons of NFL futures. You can bet on current NBA playoffs, Major League Baseball scores, fights, and live betting, esports, and more. BetOnline continues to be your source for all sports wagering and information this season. So get over to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action at BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, fellas, have you been putting together your big board for our Locked On 49ers all-time 49ers draft that's coming up in June? Are you guys getting prepared for that?
It's not behind me, is it? Okay. Whew.
Oh, no. Oh, do you have
guys to see it?
Did you go get the magnets to place on the board, or is it just a white board?
I use the dry erase.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm all digital now, so we've advanced.
Mm-hmm.
We don't write stuff on the boards anymore.
Okay. That's good to know. So you guys are getting prepared for that because it's going to be big time. Are we going to do 66 players? 22?
I think we have to, right?
11 offense, 11 defense for all three of us?
Yeah. You got to be ready to go.
It's going to be some thin positions.
Mm-hmm.
It is going to be a fun one. I can't wait for that. We'll have to find some way to figure out what the draft order is going to be. We're going to go snake? Are we going to go? Yeah, I think we kind of got to go snake, right?
You have to go snake. Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely have to go snake on that. Okay, the all-time 49ers draft coming soon to Locked On 49ers this summer in June. It's probably going to have to be a 3-week-long series of podcasts on Wednesdays. I'm thinking is what that's going to have to be.
I love it.
Did you guys happen to catch Rich Eisen talking? It was I saw the episode with Steve Young, but they played a clip from when Steve Mariucci was on. And do you guys remember the famous, I'm sure you've seen it, the famous photo of Bill Walsh where he's, drawing up a play in the grass at Candlestick with Joe Montana. Yeah. So apparently, and this is like something that Steve Mariucci is finally telling people publicly, apparently, and maybe the sleuths out there can figure out which game this was. This was a game where Steve Mariucci was coaching the 49ers and Steve Young was the quarterback. The Niners were up big apparently in the second quarter on some teams. It was late 90s. I don't know exactly which game it was, but if someone can find a copy of it. So out of nowhere, Mariucci sees Michael Zagaris, the famous 49ers photographer, on the sideline, and he thinks, this is my time. This is my moment. Randomly in the middle of a game, Niners are up big. He calls timeout for no reason, and he calls over Steve Young and gets on a knee because he wants to recreate that photo, and he sees Zagaris right there, and he wants him to get a photo of this, right? And so he gets on a knee, and he calls, and Steve Young's like, what the hell are you doing? He's like, come on, get over here. And he gets down on a knee for Steve Young to come meet him on the sideline. But then, one of the equipment guys gives Steve some water. So he passes him up, gets some water, and then they missed the moment or something. And then
he never got his photo.
No, didn't get the photo. And Mariucci's like, oh, never mind. Go back in the game.
I got a story. I'll tell at the end of this. I got a Steve Mariucci story.
Okay.
Couple of stories.
Mooch
it's actually pretty good. But go ahead.
Mooch is a character. I love it. But also from that, Steve Young was asked about the 49ers stuff and what's going on, Trey Lance, Jimmy Garoppolo. And Steve said something interesting that we've talked about a lot, Croc, on this podcast, is the whole word ready. Is Trey Lance ready? And Steve's like, I hate that. Don't ask me if he's ready. It's a loaded word. It doesn't even mean anything, right? And what does ready even mean, right? Because it becomes this circular conversation. And that's what frustrates me about it, because you can't get ready until you're ready, and you can't get ready until you've played, but you aren't ready until you've played, so you can't be ready yet, so you can't play because you're not ready, right? It just keeps going in a circle. It's
was Mac Jones ready when he threw 7 interceptions in the last 4 games or whatever, right? And lost 4
at the end. He had a game at the beginning of the season where he threw 3 interceptions. He definitely wasn't ready in those games, right? So you've got to play to get ready, and you had to know this already about Trey Lance. So if Kyle, I have a big problem with it. If Kyle Shanahan's like, well, he's not ready to play yet. It's like, you drafted a dude that played 1 year at FCS. If that's
what'd you expect
with you can't bring that player into your organization, and you have to know that about yourself. So that would be what I would point to there. So Steve feels us with that frustration of quote unquote being ready or not.
You could still be ready and fail, right? You could be ready, and then you just get beat.
That's true. Good teams and good quarterbacks do lose games too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, not just that, but you can be as ready as you'll ever be, and that might not be good enough. Maybe you're just not good enough. And maybe that's the case. Not saying that's the case with Trey Lance, but at some point you'll find out with all these guys, right? With everyone in that last class, their version of whatever ready is, how good enough is that to be able to win football games? And I think it is tough for Trey Lance playing for Kyle Shanahan, because Kyle Shanahan, we've seen how he is with younger guys. Like, it's almost like you have to be ready without a doubt for him to want to put you on the field. I always come back to what he said about Brandon Ayuk. And I say, yeah, if we just had healthier guys, Ayuk would not have seen the field as much as he did. And it's like, he was an 800-yard receiver and 7 touchdowns and whatever else. And like, you didn't want to play him, you know, like, because he wasn't to your standards. And then, now again, who am I to question? I know I'm gonna get these comments on Twitter. Like, well, like Shanahan, like, the good thing you don't coach. I get it. Shanahan is Shanahan. He's a terrific coach. He is. And clearly the way that he has gone about things, it feels like he's getting the most out of guys. I feel like they're responding for the most part, but that's still weird to me, right? Like, that's still weird that you have a receiver that ended up being as productive as he was, and you didn't want to play him. So that just goes to show, like, in the sense of what is ready, maybe for other teams with young guys who kind of let guys play through those things. Kyle doesn't want to deal with any of that. And that's a great question that you just said, Peacock, where it's like, if you don't want to deal with someone maybe having to, someone's going to have potentially a few more lumps than the next guy that's younger as well, then why draft that guy?
It's got to be a trust thing with Shanahan, right? Where it's not necessarily that he's saying that person's not ready. Maybe he just doesn't trust them to execute things the exact way he needs them done. Because that's how I feel Shanahan is. I feel he's really like, this is the way it's done. You're going to do it like this, or you're going to be in the doghouse.
I totally agree. Like, Kyle Shanahan, in a lot of ways, is playing quarterback. You know? So you're just doing what he wants you to do and what's designed to do. And maybe occasionally you need to bail him out because what he called isn't going to work. But I think we see that a lot with Garoppolo. And I think there's potential for Garoppolo to actually be better away from Shanahan, because I think maybe it'll be a little bit more freeing for Garoppolo. He won't feel like he has to force some of those throws. And I feel like Garoppolo's strengths and Shanahan's strengths as a play caller are almost so similar that it condenses the offense and almost constricts it in a way. And I think Garoppolo is trying to do what Kyle wants him to do so much that he's forcing some things. And I think he might be freer in some other offenses where he's maybe in shotgun a little more, just going to read the field and find an open guy. Kind of like he just seemed a little freer when he first came to the 49ers in 2017 and didn't really take the step that we all expected under Shanahan. And maybe Trey Lance will be the opposite and will really flourish under that, because maybe he needs that and then has a little bit of wild stallion in him to where he can go roll out and make a big play if he needs to. But I think that's a big part of it with Shanahan is you just need to do exactly what he needs. And like, you have to run this route at this depth if you're a wide receiver, because that's going to open up this thing over here that's exactly this depth. And if either one of those guys is running the wrong depth, you're out of the game, because this is designed to do an exact thing. And all the shot plays the 49ers take, those are all schemed up shots, especially under Garoppolo. Like, all those plays, it's almost the exact same play every time, right? Where the guy lines up, sort of veers to the corner, then comes back over the middle of the field over the post. Almost all the 49ers shot plays to a wide receiver is that same route combination with the underneath it.
I bet that's a lot of his frustration with Trey Lance, because even if you go to the Texans game, where I liked it, right? Like, I'm looking at him, and of course I would like you to hit you got double slants, you can hit that read right now, you can make that throw in there. But Trey Lance is like, nope, I don't like it. So let me run and throw a first down. And Kyle's probably like, why do you do that? Throw the slants. That's where it's designed. Then we talk about that play action pass that might have been on that same drive where he does a little boot, guys in his face. You could just get it out to George Kittle right now. And Trey Lance is like, no, I'm going to throw it to this guy behind. He throws a first down. Kyle's probably like, get the ball to Kittle. And then you talk about shot plays being schemed up, right? Trey Lance drops back, looks left, comes back right, throws the go route. And how many times have we seen the 49ers throw go routes? He throws a go route to Brandon Ayuk, which if he was just able to get two hands up, that would have been a touchdown. It was maybe his best throw, right? But that's probably not the way Kyle sees the field. So sometimes there's that part of it where, if it was Andy Reid, would he have as much issue with someone? I don't want to say freelancing, but I think when you just make a guy when you're so like micromanaging, when they do it right, we've seen the results. The offense is really good. It's special. But it's got to be tough because everybody's a little different. And if you don't get to exactly what it is that he wants, I think it could kind of make you not be you, right? Like, not
you have to conform,
that looseness that you need. And I mean, you can see with Patrick Mahomes. I don't think anyone throws more interceptable passes than Patrick Mahomes, but he has that freeness and that looseness. And I feel like Andy Reid has accepted that aspect of his game, and it's made it to where Patrick Mahomes can be the best version of himself, as opposed to trying to be, you're Patrick Mahomes, but no, go be Kirk Cousins, or no, go be Jimmy Garoppolo. And it's like, dude, I'm not him,
Right.
And that's tough. So has Kyle Shanahan, is he ever going to learn to kind of just loosen up the reins just a little bit?
And that freeness is what makes Patrick Mahomes and Matthew Stafford, even though they make some mistakes, they make a lot more good plays than bad plays because they're free and they're playing their game.
That's where Jameis Winston, he just does both.
Yeah, right? Jameis Winston.
Yeah, you don't want that.
Maybe that LASIK will help. I'm still not sold on what the Saints are doing with Jameis Winston. Plus, the big thing that nobody's talking about is there's no Sean Payton there anymore. Like people are acting like it's just going to be the exact same team as it was when Sean Payton was coaching. I think that's a big loss for the Saints.
Yeah, when you look at that Niners schedule and you see the Saints on there, you're immediately like, oh, that's going to be a tough game. And then you really think about it, you're like, wait, is it?
We don't know. We don't know what it's going to look like. That could be like, oh, cool, we're going to have 3 interceptions on defense in that game. And we're not scared of the Saints, even though there's a lot of talent on that roster, because it's not going to be the same team. It's going to be fun. I love the schedule. It's an awesome schedule because I think it favors the Niners in some ways for how many good teams are on it. There's going to be a lot of good games all year long and a lot of storylines almost every single week.
I mean, if you look at the tail end of it too, I mean, 5 of their last 7 games are at home, and one of those road games is that Mexico game against Arizona. So that's like 6 of their last 7 games. They're not playing in someone else's house. So that's pretty cool.
And I think it was like after week 7 or something like that, they don't even leave the Pacific time zone.
That's great. That's so good.
Oh.
Get through the beginning part.
Or go ahead. I was going to talk about the Mariucci story.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I'd rather hear that. Come on.
I do want to hear that. I just want to say, and this is a big one too, the last week of the season, it's the Arizona Cardinals. That's a division game. Niners will very likely, even if they're a team that's at 9 or 10 wins, you're going to be playing for something. That's a flex game. It's to be decided what day that game is going to be on at the end of the season, very last week against the Arizona Cardinals.
Awesome.
So coming off that New Year's in Las Vegas, you got to come back and maybe win a game to get into the playoffs there against the Cardinals at home. And that game might be flexed into some kind of a bigger venue too. So that'll be a fun one. But anyway, Brock, let's hear your Mooch story.
All right, got a couple Mooch stories. All right, so when I was in middle school, right, I used to go, 49ers were at UOP, so I used to take the bus. I don't know why my mom, I'm talking about, I was an 8th grader. My mom used to let me take the city bus in Stockton to UOP to go watch the 49ers training camp practices. And I used to be in this spot, and I'd see everybody. They'd have to pass by that spot to get from the field to like the dorms and like where they would eat, the cafeteria and all that. So I would always see Mariucci. At first, he didn't speak. And then eventually he started speaking. And I used to wear my brother's jersey like all the time. And it has his last name on the back, Crocker, right? Lincoln High School. And so he'd say, hey, Crocker, like, have you gotten any good autographs today? And I would be like, oh, I got this guy or that guy. And he was like, okay. And I mean, he asked me that was like several times. He'd see me, hey, Crocker, so I thought that was cool. Well, then that wasn't the first time I kind of had an interaction with him, or that wasn't the last time. The next time I was a kind of a 21-year-old bum, I guess you could say, trying to get my life back right and try to figure things out. So I'm working multiple jobs. I worked as a security guard and I worked at Target. So I'm at Target. I work in the electronics department in Saratoga. Was that right outside of San Jose?
Yep.
Yeah.
So I'm living in San Jose. I'm living in San Jose at this time. Working at that Target. And this guy says, hey, can you help this guy find this DVD? And I'm like, where's the guy at? He's like, oh, over there in that blue shirt. So I'm like, okay. So I walk over and I say, hey, sir, you need help finding the DVD? And he turns around and I'm like,
Mooch.
And he was like, he said, go, you can, breathe. Go ahead. Breathe. And I was just like, oh, just big 49er fan. And he was like, oh, okay, and can you help me find the movie? And I'm like, well, today's actually my second day. I don't know how to do it. So I have to find somebody.
I don't know why they got me.
Right. But yeah, a couple of interactions with him, and that was me trying to get my life back on track, at that time. So the most beautiful blue eyes I've ever seen. Yeah,
captivating, right?
Man, it's like it's
Sucks
almost
like
a navy blue, or like, it's like a blue I haven't seen before. It was crazy.
It's like what the fake blue looks like when people put in the fake colors. Yeah, you're like, that's what they're going for. They're going for the Mooch.
I
Yeah,
thought you were going to say he remembered you from your Crocker jersey back in the day.
I would have brought it up. I'm like, it's Crocker.
I know, but I was so caught off guard.
Yeah,
I was so caught off guard. Like, it's like he turned around, and I'm like, damn, that's Mooch. Like, and then I'm asking other people, like, y'all don't know who that is? They're like, no, who is he? I'm like, never mind.
Eric Crocker, always around the football at that time, made a great catch.
All right, that's good stuff.
He was more interacting. He was more interacting than Herm Edwards. I ran into Herm Edwards in Stockton at Jamba Juice, and I walk in. My cousin and I, we just got done working out, and we went and got some Jamba Juice, and somebody pulls up in a Range Rover. He hops out, and I'm like, that's Herm Edwards. And you can tell, like, he just does not want to speak to anybody. Like, his hat's down the whole time. He's like, I know these young dudes recognize me. I ain't gonna speak to them. So I didn't even try to talk to him.
Oh, I had a great interaction with Herm once. So he's just like, hey, where in Monterey? He was playing the Pro-Am, and he wasn't even out there yet. I just ran in. I was like, hey, Herm, what's going on? I said, hey, what's going on? Blah, blah, blah. What are you doing today? Where's a good place to eat around here? I was like, oh, all right.
Well, he's from that area, though. Ain't he from that area? So he just felt more at home, probably.
I think so.
He's looking at us. We got all these tattoos. We had dreads and stuff. He's like, all right, they're going to try to rob me? Or let me not make
Don't give him $1.
Oh, geez. Oh, this was pre Croc turning his life around too.
No, this one was right before. So I went off to college, and I'm training for the Arena League, and I had signed, but I hadn't left yet. So this is right before my rookie year in the AFL.
Okay.
Oh, he would have been stoked to give you some pointers, man. He's a DB.
I know, but I didn't want to. He looked like he didn't want to be bothered. He didn't want to be bothered, so I didn't even say anything.
No, it's good. It's good for people to recognize that too, and famous people. They get bugged all the time. You can tell when they don't want to be bothered. Don't bother, and some people are, anyway, all right. I got some other good stories from working downtown in San Francisco, running into people. We've got to have some more of those stories because they're always fun. But we got to go right now. We are out of time. Wink, thanks for joining us here on another Winky Wednesday.
My pleasure, guys.
Thanks everybody for listening and making Locked On 49ers your first listen every day. Make sure you check out everything else the Locked On Podcast Network has to offer, including Peacock and Williamson NFL show and the Locked On NFL Draft. Croc and I back tomorrow right here, Locked On 49ers.
See you.